Welcome to the Williamstown Baptist Church podcast. Williamstown Baptist Church is a community of worship, faith, and love. Williamstown Baptist Church is located at 214 North Main Street, Williamstown, Kentucky. For prayer requests or other information, please give us a call at 859-824-4102. You can also reach us on the web at www.williamstownbaptist.com. God bless, and now our message for today.
We're not who we used to be. One of the biggest struggles of our Christian walk is that we try and always go back. I always try and go back to Egypt. We always try and go back to ourselves. We have one who's redeemed us. We're in the middle of a series on the church. And in preparing for this series, I asked a few of our members over the next few weeks just to share with you a word of testimony. And today, Darrell Caldwell is going to share with us his testimony about the church, about his walk. Many of you know that Darrell has been battling cancer for a few years now. And I'm just thankful of his willingness to speak to us today and share his heart. And I know that we are going to be blessed. So Darrell, would you make your way up here?
Good morning. Many of you know me. Many of you possibly don't know me. But I will tell you one thing that you will learn today. Behind every good man is a good woman, right? There's evidence right there. Brother Darrell asked me if I would share my testimony. And I don't even think there was a glimmer of doubt that I would eagerly share that. I think everybody that's a believer has a testimony that they should be willing to share, I know years ago I was always taught that you write it down on paper and have a purpose. Well, there's a lot of purpose here. A lot of things have been written, and I'm hoping that if I get to be too long, somebody will take their shoe off and hit me with it. I think I'm going to challenge my mom later because I'm going to do this again at 11 a.m. service. But you know what? You have to know where you've been to see where you're going. I think that's true in a lot of things. I know the Bible talks about that, when you're plowing, that you shouldn't look back. You should look full ahead. But I think sometimes we need to glance back and say, wow, where have I been? What's going on? I've kind of always considered myself to be, and I've been corrected for this, being a transplant. See, I was born and raised in Covington, Kentucky, which is totally different than Williamstown. But I'll tell you one thing. I've been truly blessed that God put me in a Christian home. I'll tell you a little bit more about that a little later on, but that is probably one of the greatest blessings in life, is to have a family that's loving, and they grab you by the ear sometimes or whatever to get you to church. But I can remember as far back as I can ever remember. I was probably in my mother's womb my first time going to church, but that's the way it started out. My father, he's deceased now. Miss him immensely. He died in 1997. I remember my dad. He had some kind of a connection where he was friends with somebody that worked at Latonia Bakery in Latonia. And me and my two other brothers would tag along with him to go to the bakery. Greatest smells in the world. Glazed donuts. I mean, watch them made, and they would sack them up, and I can't tell you the memories that brought them out. But that kind of set us up that was our Sunday morning breakfast. Generally milk, juice, those kind of things. This was back in the day when I used to, how many of y'all ever squeezed your own oranges? Yeah. Well, that's the generation I grew up with, and I'm sure that there's some others that can relate to that. And sometimes, after church service, not every Sunday, but sometimes, Dad would take us as a family and we'd have a family meal at Frisch's. Seems like I'm talking about food a lot here, but that's not my intention. What a foundation was laid. Attendance at church was important to my mom and dad. We went to Southside Baptist Church, which is on Holman Avenue in Covington. I don't know if any of you all have ever heard of it or are familiar with it in any way. But at one day, years back, that was a growing, on-fire church. Today, I don't really know its status, but I'm sure it's not what it was in the 60s. As a young child, I can remember growing up in those days. Vietnam era was going on. I was young. Didn't understand much about life. But I knew that the church, the body of believers, were saddened every time they would call out a name. I didn't know these young men. But I could see the love, the bond from the church, the expressions on people's faces, the love that was shared when bad times came. I remember a sense of comfort by seeing all these things that were going on. Even though I was young, for me, it was very scary to hear these names mentioned. As a young fella, of course, I attended Sunday school. I attended VBS. And we had a program there which was geared towards young children. It was Sunbeams. I don't know if any of y'all have ever heard of that term or not before, but, I applaud. I'm so thankful because that's how I got my foundation laid. These ladies, I cannot remember their names. This has been 50 some odd years ago, but I'll tell you what, I remember their smiling faces. I remember one lady had a great big pearl necklace, and she just made that piano just talk, just go. And we would sing, and but I'm a byproduct of this. Many Bible stories that were told to me, crafts that we did, and did I mention treats? There you go with food again. I don't know what's going on with that. After a lot of thought, I decided that my life was not complete. I was young. I believe I was 7 years old. But I knew my life wasn't complete. I'd seen these other people come to know Jesus, and I thought, oh my, maybe I should think about this. The pastor at the time, his name was Brother Hodges. When the invitation was given, I'm pretty sure I ran down the aisle with tears running down my face. Didn't know how I got there, but I was there, and I accepted Jesus that day. I was so excited about that, and I'm sure that everybody's conversion experience is different. I was so excited. I was young, and my goodness, I didn't tell everybody. I mean, my neighbors. I went to school that following Monday, and I told them about Jesus, and for the most part, they didn't get it. They didn't understand. Some did. They're like, oh, great, give me a little pat on the shoulder. But I was so excited, and I was disappointed that I couldn't persuade other people to have this experience in their lives. This church that I was talking about, Southside Baptist Church, I watched it continue to prosper. I mean, they added members. It was a growing, booming church. They built what they called an educational building, but actually it was a gym. A lot of basketball activities took place there, which led a lot of young people in there. And like I said, the church was on the move in the late 60s. On or around about 1967, our family moved from Covington to Ellesmere. I was about 12 years old, so if you do the math, you can figure out how old I am. My family began to attend a Florence Baptist Church up on Main Street in Florence, and attended there for a while. I didn't really felt drawn to that church. I never really felt connected. I know I had some friends that attended there, and they always encouraged me to get more involved. And I was quickly becoming a teenager and beginning to be independent and up here. But I'm going to say this phrase again. I'll probably say it a couple more times. You have to know where you've been and see where you're going. As I became a teenager, I did what happens sometimes with young people. This pure heart of mine, I drifted away from God at times. Young people, if you're in that situation, and I'm hoping not, it's not a good plan. Not a good plan. I'm totally ashamed of what I did in those years. I disrespected my parents. I got involved in things that a young fellow should not. I was very much ashamed. God's forgiven me for those things. The first startling moment in my life happened around 1970. I had a grandmother pass. Any of y'all remember Chester Caldwell? You do. My grandmother Nora, she passed away rather suddenly. It devastated me. I was about 15 years old, and I was like, oh my goodness, I just didn't know what to do. I mean, I watched this church right here love on my grandpa and help the family along through this time. Again, the church, and sometimes I speak about the church, and right now I'm talking about this church, but I witnessed this church and what it did. This was a turning point that showed me that, guess what, Darrell, you're headed in the wrong direction. You need to turn around here a little bit. Being a young fella, I did probably what most normal young fellows do. They look for a girlfriend. Believe that? Well, I did. I did some dating, and I looked around, and my wife will be here later. I urged her to stay home because we have a lot of family that will be here for the 11 o'clock service. I met this young blonde girl. Now, you can write this one down. I met her at a red light on Dixie Highway in Florence. Who'd have thought? I saw this gal, and I'm like, wow. My heart went pitter-patter from car to car, But anyway, after a rather short courtship, I come to the conclusion that this is the girl. This is the one. And it's been wonderful. I loved her so much. I couldn't say goodbye. I'd leave her, and I'd say, well, I got to go, and I didn't want to say goodbye. And eventually we were married in September of 1974. And I thought, and I had found that love of my life. But guess what? We still were not attending church. A big void was in our lives. We began to attend different churches, and it just didn't seem like we fit. When I was a kid, bear in mind I was brought up on East 16th Street in Covington. Not a great neighborhood, but Williamstown, the city of Williamstown, was always like, I want to go to Williamstown. I want to go down there. It just seemed like a really great place, a great community, great place to raise children. And I always thought that, hey, maybe someday I could live down there. After my wife and I experienced 2 miscarriages, a lot of tears were shed. Our oldest daughter, Shanda, was conceived, and we began to attend a little church down the road, Mason. And it was kind of funny because we joined that church a week before she was born. Bear in mind, my wife's in labor, thinking, oh my goodness, we just joined the church. What will those people think? I said, honey, you're in labor. It's okay. It's all right. I'm sure that they're going to understand. You know what? Yes, I finally felt at home. I felt at home at that little church. Many of you all know Steve Nicholson. He became a very close friend of mine. He would always invite me to Sunday school. Persistence will pay off. Later on, as history goes, and I just hope that I'm getting this across, and this is not about me. It's about him. It's about him. Steve kept on inviting me to Sunday school, and he taught a class, and he was Sunday school director there for a while. And next thing you know, Darrell's in the middle of Sunday school, and I was pro Sunday school. I become Sunday school director, and I believe I was served for 13 years as Sunday school director down here. Small church. I put my heart, soul into it. We run, perfect attendance programs and such things. Our lives were finally on the right track, it seemed. It was exciting for us as a family, young family. Just a few years later, our firstborn son, Chad, which his name is Darrell Caldwell, he was born. Boy, the church was so excited for us. You've got one beautiful little blonde-haired girl now. Oh, here comes another little. Oh, this is so exciting. Again, the church was right there, excited for us, pointing us in a very good direction. And we're like that too. We see new babies coming to our church. I love babies. I'm sorry. That's one of my things. Back in the early 80s, there were a lot of hats worn in small churches. There were a lot of hats worn by me, and that's not bragging. I just didn't realize what I was doing. Not only was I heavily involved in church work, I was ordained as a deacon in '83. I joined the volunteer fire department. I served there for 25 years. I was in Little League. I was in Boy Scouts. You just go on and on and on. And my goodness, I look back and I think, wow, exciting times. Wore me out, but exciting times. A couple of years later, Pat was expecting again. there's something in Williamstown water. I think we need to talk to Rick about that. But our youngest daughter, Shea, was on the way. Wow. It wasn't really planned, but something happened. Something happened to me. I wasn't truly excited about it. I was like, oh boy, here we go, another child. Wow. I'm beating my brains out now, raising vegetable gardens and trying to work at a bag factory and just hammering at life, trying to make everything fit together. And wow, another child. Until she went to the doctor and found out that she couldn't get a heartbeat. And God got a hold of me. Got a hold of me very hard. And I neglected all that. It's like, you know what? And she came back home and they found a heartbeat, and boy, I was excited. I was so excited. It wasn't going to be the greatest thing in the world, but you know what? God saw us through that. And He'll see you through whatever you endure. I wasn't supposed to do this, but in the lives of church members, there are good times, there are sad times. We talked about, the people at church are there no matter what. Good times, bad times. They'll smile with you. They'll cry with you. That's what church membership's all about. And that's what I think is so important in our lives. Everything goes up and down. Everything goes up and down. We never know what's going on. Back to Williamstown's water again. Something's going on with that. In the winter of 1989, Dad would always call what we call a family meeting. A family meeting that meant that something's going on. Generally, there was going to be another child involved. And yes, there was another child on the way. Boy, surprise. But I was excited. I'd have 10 kids if my wife wouldn't beat me over the head. But I was so excited. Really, really excited. Well, our son, Chance, he was born with a defective heart. And found out very soon that his condition was very bad. He had a heart condition called hypoplastic left heart syndrome, which basically is not a good situation, especially in those years. But the only thing that they could do was put him on a heart transplant list, and he had to go to Loma Linda, California, and it was going to be a big problem. Today, I think they almost do this, I wouldn't say routine, but they do transplants a lot more now with babies. But at any rate, he spent 12 days at Children's Hospital, and he passed away. My wife and all of us, especially my children, we were in total shock. It's like, how could this happen? But on the 12th day of August that year, all our hearts were broken. And guess who was there to help pick us up? The church. The church was there. Hugs, phone calls. People come by, check on us. How you doing? It's tough stuff, His full name was Chance Kevin Patrick Chester Caldwell. His tombstone's down in Mason. It's no bigger than this podium here, but we got all the names on there. Now, there was that big heartache I spoke about. Not easing up at all. Our family went on for months with no smiles, no laughter, nothing. It was every day was terrible. No joy. Pat and I revisited things, and we said, you know what? We went over to Children's Hospital, and we spoke with the doctors over there about what's the likelihood of this event to occur again. Very, very rare. I forget the percentage that they gave us. And I was off for Christmas that year, and we decided, you know what? We're not that old. I'm okay if you're okay. Well, I knew this wasn't the water. But in January, like less than a month later, she was expecting. And it was like, oh my goodness, wow. You know, that's amazing. Was this going to be a replacement child? No. Was it going to help fill a void, a heartache? Possibly yes. I'm here to tell you that it did. He's now 21 years old. He should be here later. You know, whenever a child is born, generally people, you try to guess the birth weight. Well, with Chance, he weighed 8 pounds, 12 ounces. When I held Chase for the first time, they said, what do you think he weighs? I said, 8 pounds, 12 ounces. Yeah, he did. I remember that weight. I said, he weighs just like Chance did. And he had identical birth weight, same sex of a child. I know they're not the same. But it was like a blessing from God saying, hey, you know what? It's going to be okay. As I said before, I've always liked Williamstown. Always have. Ever since I knew about Williamstown, my goodness. I've got some strong roots here. I mentioned before Chester Caldwell. My best friend. How can you be best friends with your grandpa? He was. He taught me so much. I could go to him no matter what. He was a very, very good man. But you know, he used to quote the scripture to me all the time. Romans 8:28. And we know that all things God works for good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. He quoted that to me, I don't know how many times. You got to bear in mind, if you didn't know him, very loving and very caring. He cut firewood until he was 86 years old. He helped me cut firewood for my family to be warm. Amazing man. Used to run the Western Auto up here in town. If you all been around here for a long time, I think he had that store from 1950 to 1970. But if you wanted to buy a toy around Christmas time, downstairs, Western Auto, that's where Santa shopped down there, I believe. But it was amazing. Herbert Caldwell. Anybody heard of him? Mayor for close to 40 years, or maybe over 40 years. This is my family. Clyde Caldwell had the grocery. Wow. Amazing men. A very hard act to follow, I'll tell you that. We began to search for another church. We went around. I think we went to Pioneer for a while. We went here. We went there. I knew about this church. I knew about what it stood for. I knew many of the members. And we came and we tried it. and we begin to fall in love with you people. Shortly after we came and become members here, I found out that I had another life challenge. The life challenge was cancer. I had had problems before. I might be a walking miracle. I don't know. I have a mechanical heart valve. I had a valve replaced 8 years ago. I'm also an insulin-dependent diabetic. And now cancer came up. Scary? Sometimes. But I'll tell you what. This church, as well as other believing people, have lifted me up in prayer. And I think prayer really, 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 really works. I've got people in different states. I've got people I don't even know praying for me. I'm here for a purpose. I have yet to figure everything out yet. And I kind of figure it out as you go along. That I was diagnosed in 2010, just about 3 years ago. I was off work. I wasn't feeling at all good. Every day was a battle. I didn't work for 8 months in 2010. It killed my soul. Here I was sitting on my front porch, drinking coffee, waving at my neighbors as they went to work. And Darrell sat on the front porch. That's not me. It's not me. After many, many treatments, I began to ask the doctor, hey, what about me getting back to work? Well, the doctors are, well, let's just see. Let's see how your next scan is, And, well, if the scan looks favorable, we'll consider it. Anyway, I heard enough of those stories. And finally, in November of 10, I said, you know what? Seriously, I'm not joking here. I want to get back to work. November the 8th of 10, I went back to work. And I'm happy to say I've been back on the job ever since. Most of 2011, most of 2011 and up through August of 2012, I was working 10 hours a day. Bring it on. When I was first diagnosed, I told my family, I said, you know what? They can call it stage 4, they can call it whatever they want. How many stages do you get? And they're like, Dad, this isn't funny. I'm like, you know what? You've never seen me fight. This is my life. I'm going to fight. And I continue to fight. The battle goes on. But I'm telling you, God has indeed blessed me. I've met a lot of people along the road. If you can imagine, I've had 70 chemo treatments. I had one this past Monday. Met a bunch of people. A lot of that chemo, I would go in on a Monday. They would send me home with a pump for 3 days. And I'd go back on a Wednesday. So I was in and out of that office a whole lot. I met a lot of people. If you can go to OHC down there and you say Darrell Caldwell, everybody down there knows me. I talk to everybody. That's just one of my, I don't know if it's a gift or not. And it's so encouraging to other cancer patients. I don't have to put it into words, but I've met a bunch of people. Some of the people I actually knew, I'm like, oh, you're here. I get really disappointed if they give up. I don't want to see people give up, no matter what their condition, whether it's cancer or heart I don't want to see people give up. Some of the people I work with, amazing. Encouragement. He just come up and give me a pat on the shoulder. Hey, how's it going? Doing good. How's the last scan? Not too bad, Anyway, so I think I'm a rock star, and I tell him, I just shake my head. It's all about him. It's not me. I can't do this. God's doing this. My journey is not quite over just yet. You know, you have to know where you've been to see where you're going. My family, God bless them all. I have 8 grandchildren. Talking about support system. Wow. My mom, my dear wife, all my children. Tell you what, something like this comes up in your family. I've got 2 brothers. Love them to death. One's in California most of the time. The other one's down in Glasgow, Kentucky. They stop every single day for the past 3 years. How you doing, little brother? Call me every day. There's a connection and a bond there. You know, I just don't know what to say sometimes. You know, it's just amazing what God has shown me through this experience. But it's all about Him. It's not about me. I'm not the only cancer patient that's gone this far. There's other cancer patients that have gone farther. I'm not in a race to see how far I can go with this. I just want to share the good news to people. That's what I want to do. And I try. I try my best. I'm working on some people I work with that I don't know how it's going to come out, but one of these days when I got an answer for it, they'll say, yeah, you browbeat that poor guy to death, you know. But the amazing thing, whenever I think of God, the love He has for us. He knows everything about me. Everything. The good stuff, the bad stuff, He knows it all. But He still loves me. I was on the way to a treatment one day, getting kind of down and blue. This was in the summer of 10. I'm driving down the road. I was by myself for some reason. I don't know why, but I was on my way to treatment. And I saw myself in the rearview mirror. And there were tears flowing down my face. And you know what? Those tears went away. I'm driving down the interstate, and there's people thinking, what is wrong with that guy? I just like turn a smile. Because you know what? No matter how this comes out for me, I win either way. You know? If I get extended time on this earth, fine. If not, I'm going to be in paradise. There's no doubt in my mind. That's just the way it's going to be. What a great and loving God we have. I got one scripture I want to share with you, and I'll be closing here very soon. This is from the book of Psalms, and David had he had sang these words of the psalm that delivered him out of the hands of the enemies and out of the hand of Saul. I love you, Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock, whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. You have to know where you've been to see where you're going. I don't know about you. I know where I'm going. I'm assured of that. And it makes things so much easier. Thank you all this morning. God bless you all.